For more than 100 years, in the deep we. LL. In 1933, while northern China braced for invasion and war, a bridge worker in Harbin struck something unusual with his shovel. The wet, dark soil, packed by river floods over ages, revealed a heavy object shaped strangely like a human head. With shaking hands, the man lifted a huge skull. Its fossil dark surface and unfamiliar shape made him feel he was staring at something that was neither beast nor fully human. In that brief moment, chance and history met under his feet. Harbin was then under firm Japanese rule, and anything of worth was being seized and shipped abroad. Fearing the skull would disappear like so many other finds, the laborer made a choice that would guard its secret for almost a century. He wrapped it in cloth and lowered it into the shadow of a family well. I thought it was just a stone until I saw the brow. It was looking back, he recalled years later. That was when I knew I had to keep it safe. Hidden with water and stone, the skull left a world sight. Years turned to decades. Wars moved across China. Powers rose and fell. The city grew over the well, and the secret beneath it was forgotten. The skull was passed down quietly through the family like a guarded charm, its real worth unknown. Only in 2018, when the old grandson of the finder chose to reveal it, did it come back to light. He handed it to researchers at Hebei Geo University, and the fossil's path into history began again. When the box was opened, the room went still. The brow ridges rose like heavy walls. The jaw was wide and solid like river stone, and the eyes sat in strong, square sockets, hinting at both power and a strange kind of mind. It was clear at once. This was not Homo sapiens, not Neanderthal, not any known branch on the human map. The team named it the Harbin skull, but the media called it Dragon Man, a being from a time when the line between human and beast was not fixed. Beneath its mineral shell lay a story untouched by modern hands or light. No one yet knew that the skull would force the world to redraw the human family tree, tracing paths through ages and ancestors never imagined. It was more than a fossil. It was a message from an age when giants walked in flesh and thought, and it changes everything. ING, a face that was never X. Pected, placed under bright lab lights. The Harbin skull refused simple answers. It was the largest human-type skull ever found in East Asia, almost 10 inches from brow to back, with a brain size matching or even passing modern humans. When I first saw it, one scientist said, it felt like meeting a lost brother, one who left our family ages ago. The bone was extremely thick, the ridges like armor, the jaw broad and square, yet the face sat between the ancient and the modern. It lacked a sloped Neanderthal forehead, but it was not light and fine like a typical sapiens either. It looked as if evolution had paused, turned back, or merged paths in one single face. The mix of traits made no sense. Huge molars built for crushing sat with a wide nasal opening made for bitter, dry winters, a sign of both raw strength and skill at survival. The square eye sockets, high cheekbones, and straight face suggested awareness and expression, pointing to a being capable of complex social life. Dating it was just as strange. Uranium testing set its age at least 146,000 years, a time when the cold plains of northern China held mammoths, great deer, and saber-toothed cats. It was an age of invention and extinction, when more than one humankind lived at once. Some mixing, some fighting. So, where did Dragon Man belong? It was too new to be Homo erectus, whose flatter faces and smaller brains belonged to an older age. It was far too thick bone for sapiens, and it did not match Neanderthals either. Some experts saw Denisovan hints in its size and jaw, but with no DNA, all guesses stayed guesses. Hope remained because the inner ear and Petra's bone, key places for ancient DNA, were almost untouched. The tooth enamel, thick like stone, also raised the chance of trapped genetic traces. If even a fragment of DNA can be pulled from it, it could reveal not only who Dragon Man was, but how the human family is truly. Shape, bringing the past back to light. Before a single gene could be read, the team first tried to rebuild Dragon Man's world. Northeast China, 146,000 years ago, was a place of cutting winds and long winter nights, a land of shifting rivers, broad valleys, and frozen plains. Herds of mammoths and wild horses crossed the ice steppe, followed by cave lions and giant hyenas. Any humankind living there needed more than strong bones. They needed mind, planning, shelter, and the skill to change with the land. The structure of the Harbin skull opened a view into that lost age. The wide-nosed passages may have warmed cold air before it reached the lungs, a trait seen in other cold-climate people. The great thickness of the skull and heavy brow ridges pointed protection from blows. maybe from predators or from hunting itself. The large eye sockets hinted at vision built for dim winter light, and the big brain case suggested memory, planning, and speech. It was easy to picture Dragon Man as a skilled hunter, toolmaker, and keeper of oral memory now lost to flood and frost. Still, the core question stayed. Where did this being sit on the human tree? Each known human type, from the lean Homo erectus to the strange Denisovans and the sturdy Neanderthals, had clear traits. Dragon Man, with his mix of features, matched no branch and no blend. He stood apart, a face in the crowd that would not join any known family. Hoping for answers, the team turned to the chance that DNA had survived. New tools in ancient genetics can recover fragments from bones many thousands of years old, even in hard climates. They drilled with care, pulling powder from the petrous bone and thick-toothed enamel, knowing one mistake could erase the only hope. Getting ancient DNA is a gamble against time. In wet or oxygen-rich places, the double helix breaks down until nothing is left but dust. The Harbin skull had met both moisture and air, worn down by slow decay. The team worked with care and respect, knowing they might end with nothing. Even the hardened plaque on the teeth, a mix of food and bacteria, was scraped away with hope that it held a trace of the past. Days became weeks. Every run came back empty. No DNA, no data, only the way to failure. Some began to think nothing was left. Then a weak signal appeared. Mitochondrial DNA, fragile and old, passed down the mother's line. It was little, but it was enough. Computers raced through the code and returned a result that lit up the room. It was not Homo sapiens. It was not Neanderthal. It was something else. Something seen only once before in a Siberian cave from a child's finger bone and a few teeth. Denisovan. The Harbin skull Dragon Man was the first Denisovan face ever seen. A ghost line now had bone and brow and brain. The shock was huge. Anthropology, built on slow scraps and maybe truths, was shaken. For the first time, a full face could be tied to the hidden Denisovan DNA, and the human story was redrawn in a single stroke. This changes everything was no longer a phrase. It was S. Imple fact, the Denisovans come back into view. Until now, the Denisovans had lived mostly as an idea, a faint trace in modern genes hinting that our past was more tangled than once believed. Their first known remains, found in 2010 from a girl's finger bone in the Altai Mountains, held DNA so different that it forced a new branch onto human tree. Denisovans were not Neanderthal and not Homo sapiens, but strange cousin, both near to us and far away. With the Dragon Man fossil, the outline of Denisova became real. The Harbin skull showed a people who looked both known and foreign, tall, strongly built, with a face shaped by both hardship and skill. The brow ridges stood like a shield, the jaw was strong and useful, and the large brain case pointed to a mind equal to ours. Genetic work began to show how wide their reach had been. People today in East Asia, Southeast Asia, and Oceania still carry between 1% and 5% Denisovan DNA, a genetic echo of ancient encounters along rivers and passes now forgotten. East Asia had a far bigger role in human evolution than we once thought, said Chris Stringer of the Natural History Museum, London. Their line did not die out, it merged with ours. They vanished not through extinction, but through mixing. That fact rewrote the human story. The Denisovans were not a failed branch, but a living thread woven into many of us today. As David Reich of Harvard put it, there was not only one human species. We were one among many, and we interacted in ways we are only starting to grasp. The Harbin skull was the missing link. Proof that Denisovans walked the same ground, faced the same cold, and shaped the same tools as their better-known kin. Suddenly, the lost cousin stood everywhere, in our bones, in our genes, in some of our faces. Dragon Man was no longer a hidden relic. He was a bridge to a world once shared, a mirror held up to our own deep pa. T, the human tang. Lil, the job of placing Dragon Man inside the wide and tangled human family tree fell to geneticists and evolution scientists. When they mapped his DNA and compared it with known records, they found something that overturned long-held beliefs. Denisovans, the group Dragon Man belonged to, were not just a side branch. They were actually closer to Homo sapiens than to Neanderthals. A tree once seen as straight, erectus, then Neanderthal, then sapiens, suddenly looked like a mess of crossings, splits, and reunions. The genetic work suggested that Homo sapiens and Homo longi, Dragon Man's formal name, split about 950,000 years ago, a more recent break than the one separating us from Neanderthals. This shift forced a new view of human origins, not a straight line, but a patchwork. Bones and DNA together began to tell of ancient meetings in Tibetan highlands and Southeast Asian islands, in Chinese forests. Mixing was not rare, it was normal. The human web reached across lands and ages, twisted and dense, with threads still alive in people today. The idea of a clean, single line could no longer stand. Dragon Man's DNA showed that we are all made from old crossings, the result of long ages of contact and change. The find made old charts useless. Each new skull and each new genetic code gave a fresh angle on what human means. Dragon Man was not just a face from deep time. He was a direct challenge to old thinking, proof that evolution works through complexity, not or. They're surviving a hard land. The land around Harbin in Dragon Man's time was a hard world shaped by glacial winds, where winters were brutal and summers were brief bursts of life. Rivers lay under ice for months, and hunters watched from the forest edge. For Dragon Man is kind, each day meant facing risk and shortage. Still, in these brutal conditions, his people endured, changed, and thrived. The Harbin skull's wide cheek arches and strong jaw point to a diet of tough plants and frozen meat, foods that demanded both force and skill to use. The large nasal passages warmed the freezing air before it reached the lungs, a bodily solution as clever as any tool. Research now suggests Denisovans were explorers, not just survivors. Their genes live on in people of the Tibetan Plateau, where Denisovan variant helps modern humans breathe thin air. That trait speaks of knowledge, toughness, and a drive to push into places few others could handle. Dragon Man's presence rewrites Asia's role. Not a quiet path for human travel, but a stage of invention, contact, and survival. The continent appears not as background, but as the forge where humankinds met, mixed, and reshaped each other in the fire of Ha. Rodship, the argument that shocked scientists. When the data on the Harbin skull was first released, the effect ran through anthropology like an earthquake. Major journals rushed to respond as the debate left academic walls and spread to the public. In lecture halls and labs from Beijing to Berlin, top researchers clashed over one central issue. Was Homo longa the Denisovan long suspected, or a totally new human line that rewrote the field? The discussion centered on evidence that was strong and divisive. The Harbin skull, with its heavy brow ridges, large brain case, and rare mix of old and new traits, did not match any other hominin fossil found in East Asia. Supporters of a Denisovan ID pointed to the bone structure. Thick cheekbones, large teeth, and matching protein markers recovered from the fossil. Ancient DNA is hard to secure and easy to spoil. Some pushed for more samples, while a smaller group argued the skull might represent a separate branch no one had named yet. But no one contested the scale of the find. For years, Denisovans had lingered like ghosts, known only from fragments of bone, a few molars, and faint traces in modern DNA from Melanesia, Tibet, and parts of East Asia. Their existence was certain, their identity unclear, until the Harbin skull appeared, whole, real, and strangely familiar. As the uproar slowed, a new view took shape. Humanity was not the end point of a steady climb. We were one of several survivors in a line built by trial, loss, and chance crossings. The Harbin skull, with its deep sockets and mute witness, became a new symbol for our shared past, layered, tangled, and still unfolding. The Reveilla, tie-in. The true turning point came with the sequencing of DNA from the Harbin skull, a task both slow and historic. In clean rooms sealed by glass and filtered air, scientists pulled the ancient code apart bit by bit. What they saw stunned even senior experts. The genetic signal confirmed what many had guessed. Humanity's past is a web, not a straight line. Denisovans, once known only from faint traces in genetic data, stood revealed as a full branch of the human family. Their genes are still carried by people of the Tibetan Plateau, where Denisovan variants help modern humans live at high altitude, raise hemoglobin levels, and endure fierce climates. Neanderthals, in turn, passed on genes for immunity, skin tone, and metabolism, tools for surviving a world that was once icy, wild, and unsafe. This finding cracked the myth of human isolation. Neanderthals, Denisovans, and Homo sapiens all shaped and were shaped by a shifting world. Mixing was not rare. It was central to being human. The Harbin skull, far from an odd fossil, proved that our kind was not a single line, but a network of crossings, fusions, and shared lives. The insight shook every corner of science. The fossil, called Dragon Man in headlines, was hailed as the most important paleontological find in 100 years. Major news outlets devoted full features to it. The news story was one of exchange as much as rivalry. Human evolution was not a clean contest, but a long, unpredictable dance. Each human type left something inside the others: genes, tools, stories, habits. We were never lone winners of nature, but members of a shifting clan. The Harbin Skull's message was one of connection, reunion, and a real chance that more lost cousins still wait unseen in the corners of the EA. Arctic, what Dragon Man left behind. Today, the Harbin Skull rests in a climate control vault in northeast China, sealed behind steel, glass, and silence. Guards protect it. The fossil is now a national treasure, not only for its rarity, but for what it represents: a chapter of human history once believed gone forever. No amount of money could define its value. It is more than an object, it is inheritance. But the real force of Dragon Man is not in the bone itself. It is in what it revealed. This skull has triggered a global shift, reshaping how we define the human story. Across the world, scientists redraw the human family tree, no longer a clean trunk but a thick forest of crossing branches. Geneticists trace old Denisovan blood in modern people through fragments of ancient DNA. Historians revise what they thought they knew about migrations and meetings, now understood as pieces of a much more tangled past. The shock spreads beyond anthropology to climate science, to evolutionary medicine, even to philosophy. If we were not alone, if other humankinds lived, felt, built, and vanished, what does that say about us? The Harbin Skull leaves questions that hang in the air. Who else walked those frozen plains? What songs did they sing? What tools or stories died with them? Do their lessons still live inside our genes, waiting to be heard? For now, Dragon Man stands as both relic and challenge. He reminds us the human story is still open, that every dig, every genome, every whisper from the earth can rewrite what we think we know. Somewhere more bones wait in the dark. More ancestors sleep beneath the soil. And with each new find, the lines between us fade, replaced by something larger: connection. This fossil does not end the story. It begins countless new ones. What secrets still lie below our feet? Could more dragon men still be hidden by time? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.